This week on The Wheelhouse. Tis the season of toys and tariffs. For Connecticut Public, I'm Frankie Graziano. This is The Wheelhouse, the show that connects politics to the people. We got your weekly dose of politics in Connecticut and beyond right here. From groceries and your holiday dinner to toys in your shopping cart, tariffs shape the cost of countless items. President Trump recently rolled back some of the tariffs he'd imposed, and the Supreme Court is weighing a case that could change how presidents set trade policy in the future. Those decisions don't just affect global markets, they hit Connecticut restaurants, retailers, and your pocketbook. This hour, we're unpacking what tariffs mean for our wallets, our local businesses, and our holiday plans here in Connecticut. Joining me now to help set the stage, Daniel DeRosier. Daniel is an international trade reporter at Politico. His reporting focuses on the Trump administration's tariffs. Daniel, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So happy to have you here. Folks, if you want to give us a call, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, or at least something you'd like us to address, give us a call, 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. Daniel, you've been following President Trump's tariffs over the past few months. Which industries have been most significantly impacted?
I feel like most places have really been hit, right? There's not really anybody that's kind of gone unscathed. If you think of any industry, the tariffs have ripple effects that end up, affecting you in some way, shape, or form. I think it really depends on where you're getting your products from, right? If you're really dependent upon getting products from, say, China or Asia, it's been a pretty painful past year, particularly if you're sourcing from China. If you're sourcing from Canada and Mexico, depending on the products, you may have kind of gone away unscathed because there have been some loopholes there. But you mentioned the holidays are coming up. The toy industry is absolutely one that has been really affected. A lot of toys, their products are made in China. It just is the kind of most economically feasible place for them to produce their toys. And so you've had the toy makers, particularly small toy makers across the country, have been really frustrated with how the ongoing trade war with China has unfolded over the past year.
And later on in this program, we're going to talk to a local general manager of a toy shop on how at least the tariff prices on one of the suppliers that she has is impacting her business. So stay tuned for that. In November, President Trump authorized some tariff cuts. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So you had an off-year election in Virginia and New Jersey where Republicans really got pummeled. I think they lost more than they were expecting. And those races focused a lot on affordability. And when we talk about affordability, obviously we're talking about housing, we're talking about healthcare, but the affordability stuff that people see day to day are often grocery prices and how much they're seeing at checkout every time that they go to the store. And so shortly after that, we saw the administration roll back tariffs on a lot of grocery goods, things that you just can't grow in the United States, like pineapples, bananas, coffee. We don't grow coffee like in a substantial way. Hawaii can't produce enough. And so they rolled back tariffs on a lot of those products in the hopes that will maybe help grocery prices come down a little. That said, the administration had been talking about, they had kind of targeted these things as things that they will potentially let up tariffs on, with the knowledge that, again, you're not going to produce that many bananas in the U.S. And so they pass it off as like, we've reached a point in our trade deals where this is the move to make. At the same time, the fact that it came after voters were really expressing their displeasure with affordability is a sign that they're acknowledging at least how the tariffs are affecting people's perception of the economy.
And something to continue to watch as we saw another race maybe impacted by what's happening with federal policy from the Trump administration. As in Tennessee, there was that close race between Afton Ben and Matt Van Epps. Obviously, Ben did not win that, but nonetheless, people are saying it could be close because of the affordability question. I'm glad you brought that up there. Do we know what motivated President Trump to roll back tariffs on things like beef, coffee, and other Brazilian goods? At least I'm trying to get more specific about the goods here, I guess, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, the beef, there's people are complaining about beef prices, and so the administration had kind of floated doing something. There's been a lot with Argentina, and the administration's been trying to help out Argentina. Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, is a close ally of Trump, and so the administration bailed out Argentina through a cash exchange, and so it was interesting because as soon as they started making moves to allow more beef into the country, Republicans in Congress really got upset, and they pushed back in a way that we really haven't seen Republicans push back through much of this year. And I think that at least scaled the administration back a little for what they were planning on beef. At the same time, they did lower these new tariffs, right? There are already tariffs that exist on a lot of these products, but they got rid of these new higher tariffs. And it depends on the country, right? Brazil has a 50% tariff, whereas some of these other Central American, South American countries, they have 10% tariffs. But they rolled those back. And it doesn't change the fact that we have, I'm getting a lot into trade policy here, but there are tariff rate quotas, right? Which say that you can accept a certain amount of goods into the country without a tariff, and then they apply a higher tariff or vice versa. And so they haven't changed those quotas, but they have lowered the tariff for those coming in. And yeah, I mean, the motivation, again, it appears largely it's an affordability thing, right? While the administration has acknowledged that these goods can't be grown and can't be produced in the U.S., which is contrary to the goal of the administration, which is like, let's get more stuff built here. They had to make this acknowledgement of we're driving up a price of a good that we have no hopes of growing here. We might as well lower those because we've reached a certain point of trade negotiation. We don't need to hold this threat of a tariff over the heads of these countries that we're negotiating with in the same way that we may have had to earlier on in this process.
Where's the beef? We're going to talk about the beef later on with a local head of a grocers union here that's going to talk about the impact of the beef shortage on local grocers this holiday season. That'll come on later, too. So I'm glad that we're addressing some of these things locally here and nationally with Daniel. Despite the fact that the White House continues to negotiate on tariffs, there's looming Supreme Court action that could impact what actually happens. Where does that case stand now, Daniel?
Yeah, the judges are writing a decision. So we're waiting on the justices to weigh in. They had oral arguments in November, in early November. It's kind of a wait and see moment. The administration is expecting a decision that could come anytime this month because they asked for an accelerated consideration from the Supreme Court. When you were listening to oral arguments, it seemed like a lot of the judges were skeptical of the claims that the Trump administration is making, that he has these powers to impose these widespread global tariffs. And if I really get into the weeds here, right, where there are two different tariff levels or different tariff actions that Trump has taken. The action that is being challenged are these really widespread global tariffs, the ones that went on pretty much every country in the world, and the actions that he's used to kind of punish countries that have irritated him, like India and Brazil, where he's put an additional 50% tariff. So those are the ones that the Supreme Court is, I think, skeptical that he has that power to just kind of unilaterally impose tariffs in this way. There are other tariff actions that he's done. They're called Section 232. That's some of the stuff on steel and aluminum, furniture, copper, those sorts of things. Those aren't being challenged, right? Like he has this in his first term, the Supreme Court was like, yeah, he can do this. And so there's no challenge there. And so if the Supreme Court does end up ruling against him, you'll see this kind of he'll lose one power, he'll maintain other powers. The administration has pledged to apply tariffs in other ways. And so the tariff question isn't really going away. It's a matter of how will he do it? How expansive can it be? And how much authority does he have here? How much power has Congress really given up to the executive branch so that he can bend trade to his will?
That's a very good breakdown, and I appreciate you getting in the weeds because you're good at getting back out of it, which is what we like on the show. We can get a little wonky here. How unusual is it for the court to get involved in tariff power? It sounds like at least recently they did, at least in the last Trump administration.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand, like the Trump administration is doing something that we haven't really seen since like the Great Depression, right? They're using tariffs in a way that are really unprecedented, and so you're seeing more court action now than you have before because somebody like President George W. Bush just wasn't inclined to use tariffs in the way that President Trump has. I think that if you look at the case in the Supreme Court, it's really at its core about the power between the two branches of government, between Congress and between the president. And that's generally how the Supreme Court operates, right? Like they're asking these bigger questions about how our governmental system works. And at the end of the day, if you're breaking it down in the simplest form possible, has Congress fully handed this taxation power? Because a lot of people view tariffs as taxes, right? They're taxes on businesses that are bringing goods into the U.S. That are either paid by, businesses, consumers, importers, whatever. So you're asking, has Congress really given this power of taxation over to the president when traditionally Congress is the branch that handles any sorts of levying taxes, that sort of thing.
And thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. If the Supreme Court does derail President Trump's trade strategy, is he out of options? I don't know if we're expecting that, but could we see this continue? Or I guess let's look at the hypothetical of if it doesn't go his way.
No, it will continue. Like 100%. Like I say that with confidence, right?
Yeah.
There are tariffs that aren't being challenged, right? So you're still.
Yeah.
And let's bring this back to real life, right? You have furniture, right? There is a Section 232. It's a national security investigation. So there's now a 25% tariff on wood products, and that includes upholstered furniture. The furniture industries, they thought they were like in the clear. They were able to get most of their goods from Mexico, tariff-free. There was some stuff going on in Southeast Asia, but like all of a sudden they're hit with upholstered furniture now is tariffed, and they're having to mitigate that, and they're having to navigate those costs. So there's a kind of higher end brand, Arhaus. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. They said that they're taking a 12 million hit this year, and they're expecting a 50 million hit next year, just because they're trying to bring more of their work back to the U.S. They are trying to lean on upholsterers that are U.S. based using U.S. products, but their supply chain is so international. It's Southeast Asia, it's Europe, it's Mexico, and they are having to kind of take this hit that they really weren't expecting. And so and those tariffs won't be struck down by the Supreme Court. That is a separate action that's being taken there. And the administration has pledged to use some of their other tools. They're more difficult. There are more restraints. There's more regulations. But they've pledged to use those other tools to apply tariffs on a global scale in the way that they already have.
What about markets in other countries? How are other economies dealing with the tariffs? Are they getting similar kind of hits to that the American economy is feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's a global thing. I think Japan is contracting, or the Japanese economy has been hit pretty hard. The South Korean economy. I mean, much of the reason that these countries haven't been like, hey, administration, you can take your tariffs and shove it, is because their economies are really impacted by this. They need the U.S. as a market. South Korea is a great example, right? Their auto industry. All of a sudden, you have the EU with a lower tariff rate. You have Japan with a lower tariff rate, and their auto industry is having to eat a higher tariff. And they really had this urgency to craft a deal with the U.S. And I mean, we do have to look at if you can define success in whatever way, but the Trump administration has said we're putting on tariffs, and they've succeeded in having countries be satisfied with a 10% or 15% tariff rate. and these are countries that had basically no tariffs or way, way, way lower tariffs just a year ago. And they're like, hey, yeah, here was a success. We brought them down to 15%. And so they've really just changed the game in how we look at tariffs and how we look at countries being able to, or companies from other countries being able to operate in the US market. And it's a radical shift that I think will have long-standing impacts.
We always talk in local government about strong or weak governments. This is a strong example of strong government of what they try to do there. I want to invoke something that Howard Lutnick said to the Fox Business Network. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, that the goal is to bring prices down by Christmas. That sounds nice. What do we know about the feasibility of that timeline?
So it's really interesting. So again, I'm going to kind of go in the weeds here because for
Sure.
months, right, economists have been like, hey, tariff prices are going to hit. Like as soon as these roll through, you're going to be paying more, you're going to be paying more, you're going to be paying more. And yes, they have, but they haven't hit to the same extent that I think everybody was expecting. And there's two reasons there. One is there's been a kind of delayed implementation of the tariffs. The president announced them April 2nd, but the higher rates really didn't go into effect until like August. And so you were able to get a lot of goods in before the higher rates went into effect. And then two, big box retailers, Target, Walmart, they've been pretty good at moving things around, adapting their supply chain. They can lift the price on one thing and lower the price on another thing. And so it's been harder to kind of see the price increases overall, although we have seen kind of elevated inflation if you look across the basket of goods. That is going to get harder and harder and harder. I think that if you're talking to some of these big box retailers, the Christmas season's really, really important. And so they're going to try and keep prices down as much as possible for the next month. And then in the first quarter of next year, that's when they say we're going to see more of these price increases, partially because we're now starting to see more inventory that was hit with a tariff when it came into the country. So that's a hard prediction for him to make. But the White House has been whistling a happy tune, I would say, on the economy for a while, right? The president has basically been like, people aren't talking about how the economy is good enough. It's a messaging issue. And so they're going to keep telling you that the economy is great. There was a cabinet meeting yesterday where Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said, not only is the economy already doing great, it will do even better because of the tax bill that was passed in July. And he said that's going to put more money in people's wallets. And so these tariff price increases aren't going to be as much of an issue. And so, yes, it's a difficult sort of thing to predict. Certain products will go up, certain products won't. For like furniture, again, like those prices have already been passed through. But people, when they go buy a couch, they haven't bought a couch in a couple of years. And so they're like, it's more expensive. I expected it to be more expensive. And so they might still be buying it anyway. It's not as clean cut as prices are up, people are turning away because consumers really are still spending. And maybe some of that's being driven by the richest of the rich, but we haven't seen a full pause. I mean, Black Friday, it was a big shopping boon. And so a lot of people were still purchasing things during the sale season. Right after Thanksgiving.
And that's what I keep hearing locally, that people are still spending. So I guess some kind of confidence there. You're saying that officials are singing a happy tune in Washington. It's a Christmas season. Nobody wants to hear about tariffs and what's happening. We could try to ignore those, right? But no, go ahead. Sorry.
And I've been focusing a lot on the big box retailers, right? They're the ones who have to tell us publicly how things are going and what hit they're facing. Small businesses are the ones that tend to struggle more with this, right? Walmart can shift around tariff costs. They can switch their suppliers. They can do more to mitigate this than, say, a toy business in Ohio that makes dollhouses and they get their stuff from China and their prices went, like their input costs just went up drastically. And so small businesses are really on the front line here. A lot of them are having to take out loans to try and just make it through these tariffs. And a lot are worried about what's going on. So I think it's important to not lose sight of Main Street and how small businesses are having to fare with this, because it's a lot more challenging. The pressures on them are a lot more difficult than the pressures on Target, on Walmart, coals,
or
etc.
or Pebbles Toys and Gifts in New Haven, which buys wooden doll houses from Thailand, which we're going
Yeah.
to talk about later on in the show. I'm excited to do that. Hey, are retailers likely to change their pricing in real time if tariffs hit mid-season, or is most of this already baked into current prices? So, like, let's say somebody comes in and you're buying from China, and the price per unit goes up $1 or $2. Are you going to then shift it on the customers, or are you like, hey, we're kind of dug in for the season?
Right now, they're dug in for the season.
Okay.
And companies have been eating the tariffs more than we probably expected. I think there was a Goldman Sachs thing that came out in um, October that said that consumers are eating our consumers are having to pay 55% of the tariffs. So that means companies are eating 45%, about half of the tariffs. And so they're not passing all of it on. And they're going to do it as quietly as possible, right? Like they don't want you to feel sticker shock when you go to Target and say, "Oh no, a basketball just cost me $10 more than it used to when I bought it last time." And so they want to try and keep the price increases as quiet as possible. But when they're talking to investors, they're saying, "Yeah, we're increasing prices. We want to make sure that our profit margin doesn't get hit too hard by these tariff costs."
Man, a tough time for some of these retailers. I don't know who's on the basketball. When I was a kid, it was Michael Jordan basketball, and it had the facsimile signature on it. And I got excited. My aunt told me that it was going to be worth $1 million, and my aunt is very morbid. My aunt Elvira, she would always say that it's going to be worth a lot of money when he dies. But who's on the basketball? Is it LeBron James? Maybe they got a Webby basketball or something like that.
I was just at Target. I didn't see anybody on the basketball at Target, but
But nonetheless, they are eating these costs 45%. It's a lot of these businesses eating the cost of the tariffs. Which industries then are pushing hardest for tariff relief, and why? Maybe how's that South Korean auto industry doing? Give me some ideas of some of these industries here that are impacted.
yeah, I mean everybody is pushing for tariff relief,
Yeah.
and it's a challenge, right? If you look at the last administration, there were tariffs in the first Trump administration. There were tariffs in the Biden administration. They were doing it in a way where there was a process where these businesses could apply for tariff exemptions, and it was a really formal thing. They could say, "We need an exemption because of X, Y, Z." There's a process laid out in front of them. The way that the Trump administration has been doing the tariffs, there is no process for that. And so your best bet is to get in the room with him or to get in the room with Howard Lutnick or Scott Bessent and argue your case and just kind of hope for exemptions. We've seen some groups that have been successful. The tech industry has been pretty successful. They have tariff exemptions on semiconductors, a lot of electronics. The administration says that's because they will soon be applying tariffs to those things, but they've been able to make it through much of the year without having to pay tariffs on the sorts of things that would make your iPhone more expensive. The auto industry has been successful in, at least the American auto industry has been successful in getting tariff rebates for stuff that's produced in the US. And so they're basically like, "Hey, we're moving more of the auto industry over to the US, but we need some time to do that. Can you just give us a little bit of a break in the process?" And they have gotten a little bit of tariff relief there. And then the farmers, the ag community, they've been able to secure some relief. Input costs for farmers, like your John Deere tractor is going to be more expensive because of the auto tariffs, but also fertilizer. A lot of the products that go into fertilizer are imported, and so they've been able to get exemptions on fertilizers. The other kind of big winner here is the aerospace industry. Boeing. Not only is Boeing being included in a lot of these trade deals, people are like, "Yeah, we're going to buy 50 Boeing planes because that's an easy way to meet investment targets that the administration wants." But also aircraft parts have been exempted from a lot of these tariffs and in trade deals with a bunch of countries. So some people are successful. Others, I mean, they're banging on the wall, trying their best to get in, the toy industry being a major one, right? There used to be, I think, no toys on tariffs, or no tariff on toys, sorry. And they're frustrated because they haven't been able to get the administration to really bend there. I mean, Trump himself said, maybe you'll just have to deal with getting $2 instead of 30. And so the toy industry is being seen in a way that it's almost as if they're being seen as a luxury in some ways, rather than some of these other products like bananas and pineapples or whatever, or what have you. The Yeah, and then sorry, the last one, because it's the holiday season, people drink wine and spirits.
Yes.
They've had a hard time getting tariff relief as well. The spirits industry in particular. I used to live in Kentucky, and they make their bourbon, and then they send their barrels over to Scotland, and so it's a really connected industry.
Yes,
and so they're frustrated that that Scotch is more expensive, that Irish whiskey is more expensive, that the champagne that you might pop on New Year's Eve is more expensive because of these tariffs.
And when you talk about the tariffs, not really the loopholes, making it so that tariffs into Canada and Mexico aren't really impacting certain industries. That bourbon industry is being severely impacted, at least in terms of what's happening in Canada. Also, no toys for tariffs. I think I'm going to write that down as 2025 band name of the year, Daniel. I like that a lot.
Yeah, maybe. The bourbon one is so fun, or not fun, but Canada, there isn't much of a tariff on American whiskey in Canada, but Canadians are just like, we're mad at you.
Yeah.
We're not buying your whiskey. And so you can't fix that, right? Like there's nothing that the administration can do to lower tariffs on that, or the Canadian government can do to lower tariffs on that. That's just like Trump made them angry, and they're saying, well, we're not going to buy your Kentucky bourbon. And it's one of those ripple effects that you get from what would be a larger trade war.
I'm so excited we dug into that, because my hobby, I will not, I guess, confirm or deny that my hobby, when I'm not being a dad or the host of the show or whatever else, is speculating on bourbon prices when I walk into a package store to try to find out if they have the latest Weller or Eagle Rare bottle. Hey, this was fun. Thank you so much, Daniel. We're going to point people to your reporting. It's tremendous. You're going to continue to follow tariff pricing. International trade reporter for Political, Daniel DeRocher, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I can't wait to call you back to come on, and watch out for those tariffs there. After the break, we delve into how tariffs may impact your holiday wish list. Let us know if prices are changing your holiday plans. Are you shopping differently this year? Give us a call, 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. But before we head to break, join our, you think what I'm wearing today is wild. Wait till you see what I'm wearing in a couple of weeks, or excuse me, next week, next Wednesday, December 10th, at the Wheelhouse Live. Join our Wheelhouse mascot, Ollie the Octopus, and me in Hartford, December 10th for the Wheelhouse Live. We're at the Connecticut Public Studios to discuss 2025, the year political satire became too hot for TV. It'll be a lively chat about free speech, democracy, and more with political science professor Bilal Siku, Republican analyst Liz Koranowitz, and UConn media law professor Amanda J. Crawford. Get your tickets now at ctpublic.org/Frankie, ctpublic.org/Frankie.
This is Connecticut Public Radio.
There are billions of them in the world. They're everywhere. They're outside your window right now. But how much do most of us know about birds? One Expert's new podcast debunks bird myths and demystifies these animals for everyone. He joins us. And what bird watching can do for our understanding of birds and of ourselves. It's all about the birds next time on 1A.
Coming up this morning at 11.
Support comes from LiveWell, soon to be home to the nation's first finger clinic for dementia prevention. You can reduce your risk for dementia by up to 45% through modifiable risk factors, according to The Lancet. For details, visit livewell.org.
On the next Fresh Air, President Trump's strikes on alleged Venezuelan narco-terrorists in boats he claims are transporting drugs. We talk with Washington Post reporter Alex Horton. He broke the story of how the first targeted boat had a second strike intended to kill 2 survivors in the water, in compliance with Pete Hegseth's order to kill the entire crew. Join us.
Listen today at noon.
In New England, the weather is always changing. Listen for forecasts throughout the day from meteorologist Garrett Argianis. Support comes from Wesleyan Potters, Community Renewal Team, and Massaro Community Farm.
This is the Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. We're in the middle of the holiday shopping season, and this hour we're looking at how economic forces like inflation and tariffs are impacting efforts to shop and save. Consumer Reports has a price tracker on its website at consumerreports.org. Chris Raymond monitors the prices of certain goods there as Consumer Reports home and tech editor. He joins us now via Zoom. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Frankie. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. We're going to have a nice conversation here. I want to know what folks are noticing about items on their wish list or any anecdotes that they could share with us from the checkout counter. Help us tell the story of holiday shopping in 2025 by calling 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. Hey, Chris, you've worked on this price tracker since May?
Yeah, we actually honestly came up with the idea in early April, literally on the day that the tariff strategy was first announced. I was meeting with one of my writers, and we were talking about the Nintendo Switch, which had just been introduced on that very day. And normally, Nintendo fans, gaming fans, are accustomed to being able to pre-order that item the day that it gets announced. But Nintendo actually had to cancel pre-orders because they didn't have any idea on when or what the prices would be like when the item was actually introduced.
Being a parent of a gamer is hard. I didn't know that there was a Nintendo Switch 2 until my son saw this cool Donkey Kong game that he wanted. And then it said that you had to own the Nintendo Switch 2. Well, guess what, Chris? We got the Nintendo Switch 1, so we can't get that unless we get that. So you're giving me some bad memes about the Nintendo Switch there. But this does relate to tariffs. You guys seeing this and you're like, hey, maybe we should follow this and at least follow some items and put them on a tracker.
That's right. So that first day, we were thinking, hey, it would be interesting then to follow, take a number of items, right, and follow them through the year to kind of see how prices shifted. And we started off thinking about maybe doing 5, and in the end, we came up with 16 items, sort of starting with a 10-ounce tub of Folgers coffee and going all the way up to the Ford F-150 pickup truck, one of the most popular vehicles in the nation. And we wanted to kind of follow those prices then week to week. So we literally on Friday morning, I get up and I kind of click through this list of items. We have 3 different retailers selling each one, and we click to kind of see what the prices are. And we, weren't thinking that this was going to be a sort of scientific thing. It's not a strong barometer of what's happening, but it allowed us to kind of take a look and see when prices were shifting. And then look into that and see if there were actually stories there. And in the end, 5 of the 16 items have seen significant price increases since we launched. So the story launched in mid-May, I think, with 3 weeks worth of data, and we've been following it since then.
What other work does that involve? I know you guys are working with a marketing research firm or something like that. What kind of work does this involve to sort of test the hypothesis?
That's right. And again, we're looking at 16 items, so it's hard for me to, look at what happens to the Ford F-150 pickup truck and say this is the entire auto industry. So when we started to see increases, and I'll tell you, we saw them in May right off the bat. The vacuum cleaner, the washing machine, and the microwave oven all jumped up like $50 in 1 week's time. We were able to reach out to Open Brand, which is a market research firm that we work with on pricing at Consumer Reports. And they literally send people out into stores every week and record the pricing on thousands of items. So we were able to reach out to them and say, hey, we're seeing something with appliances, major appliances. What are you seeing? And they were actually able to kind of take a look at their data. They actually had a report coming out the following day that said that they had seen increases in home appliances. In the weeks that followed, they saw them in apparel and home furnishings as well. So, we do, when we see these things happen, we kind of go back and we double check. I think another good example was in June, then the infant car seat from Chico went up by $10. And we were able to reach out to a baby registry site called Babylist. And they had actually seen a few thousand items go up by as much as 18 to 20, 30% in price during that stretch.
All right, you went into the Chico car seat. We were going to talk about that in a second, but let's get into some of these items, okay? We're going to stroll along your tracker if we can. I want to ask you about a specific good on your list at consumerreports.org. And then I want you to kind of help me with the price increase or not since May. and how it may be relative to tariffs. Let's start with the best part of waking up is Folgers in your
Yes.
cup and the tariffs, I guess. Go ahead.
There you go. Now that was interesting because that's an item that we don't like, we don't test for coffee, but we knew as soon as we started talking about this, like, hey, you got to get something that people are, confronted with every single day. Everybody expects to start their day off with coffee. And so it was like a no-brainer to put on the list. That one was not a significant, I didn't see like a $50, dollar increase or a $10 like the infant car seat, but that one has inched up over the last few months so that tub of coffee now costs on average $2.40 more than you would expect, or than it, cost at the start of the year. And there again, that's something we were actually able to confirm with the Consumer Price Index. I think the one that we looked at in September, it was up by, coffee prices were up by 18% overall, year over year.
Man, that's, if you think about that though, when you're thinking about the grocery bill, like $4 for one item is a pretty big jump. So I'm glad that we're covering that, because you think about how the grocery prices are, and we talk about the price of milk and eggs and something like that. That is pretty hefty. Here's what a lot of people have in the online shopping cart, maybe including my wife. I think we bought this last year, or not this particular model, but this brand here, the Shark Navigator Professional Vacuum Cleaner.
Yes. Now that one's been very fascinating to me because there's not one item in the list that has seen such dramatic changes. We see swings of $25 to $30 from week to week. And so we ended up looking into that just a week or so ago to kind of try and figure out what was happening there. That is an older model. It is a very popular model. It's the Shark Professional NV360, I think, is the official model number for it. And as a result, that price has, like I said, fluctuates $25, $30 a week. But a lot of that is because those are retailers that are sort of trying to draw people in either to their websites or into their stores to see it. That item did jump up, though, $50, like I said, in May. And what that means is that you can still get deals on it, but when those deals are over, it springs back up to a significantly higher price than it was at in May when we launched this.
So I want to continue to talk about this for a second. Chris is a reporter essentially and a home and tech editor here for the website. Again, we're not trying to get you into the new F-150. We're going through this stuff to try to make sure we can help consumers understand the nuance here of what's happening with these price increases and how they relate to tariffs. So we're doing this and having some fun with some of these items in order to get you guys to understand that we're talking about this Consumer Reports price tracker because this is the real work it takes, even reaching out to an open brand, testing the hypothesis, doing this kind of work to help people understand these cost shifts and something like that. Hey, again, 16 items on the tracker. I think you've referred to it as a small basket of products. But what does your tracker tell us, I guess, in sort of summation here about this economic policy and how it's impacting U.S. markets?
I think it certainly is impacting people. It's hard to kind of put your finger on it, and in part because, as you and Daniel discussed, there was a 90-day pause on the tariffs right after they were introduced. There were a lot of manufacturers that kind of rushed to kind of get products here to the U.S. during that stretch. And so they were actually able to keep prices down. And then some of them have been, a lot of manufacturers and suppliers have been absorbing some of those costs. But like I said, at the end of the day, you're looking at like sort of 5 of the 16 items on our list that have increased in price, and, a $2.40 increase on your coffee is one thing, but when you multiply that by the number of items that you're getting, there's just a real impact here, and I think we saw that, in those midterm elections, people are deeply concerned about the affordability issue, right? The cost of living. And so, we had a discussion for the price tracker 2 weeks ago with the interim director of Purdue has this center that looks at, food security, and they kind of look at that from month to month and track that. And, as of September, 14% of the households in America were suffering from some form of the technical definition of food insecurity from the Food and Drug Administration. And that's like roughly 5 million more people who are suffering from food insecurity this year. So it's certainly a significant concern for many people in this country.
People going through a lot in America. I'm glad that we're talking about it here. Chris, I got a couple more questions for you. But first, I want to get a caller from Middletown in here. Catherine, you're not shopping at Amazon or Target. Tell us why.
Because of the administration. I got my first ever membership at Costco, and I love it. And there's just some great local vendors, the Man Cave in Middletown, Parati's Country Barn in Middlefield. I found a home baker in Killingworth that makes authentic German bread. Why use these? Really, it's just to benefit billionaires when we should be benefiting our neighbors.
Hey, what do I find at the Man Cave in Middletown? What's there?
Lots of men are very hard to shop for. I don't know if you know that, but they basically have what they need. But I have found like a great lunch bag for a man. Funny boxer shorts and socks, but they're big on cigars. They have a humidor, grilling things. I don't know. You should walk in because every time I go in, I think I'm buying something for one person and I leave with gifts for three people. So they've got great ideas.
Catherine, I hate that I sound like they wrap it for you too. I like that. I really like that. I'll pay for that option. I sound like the stereotypical male now, the grill things and all that. I always tell Colleen, though, send me to a 49ers game, but don't buy me stuff. Buy stuff for the kids. Thank you so much, Catherine. I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing up local shopping. We'll talk to some local businesses at least shortly, at least one of them. So thank you so much, Catherine. I appreciate it. Happy holidays to you.
And I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hey, I want to spend the rest of our time here, Chris, seeing if we can offer some tips like Catherine just shared to our audience. But how should people be shopping at this time? Let's talk about those. Let's say you're on the Consumer Reports tracker and you're watching this. You're trying to understand what's happening with prices. When do I buy, Chris? When's a good time to get out there and buy that item? Do I just take it on the chin and buy it right now at the price? Anything you could do to help us here?
Yeah, I think you need to do a little bit of homework on this, but I would say like if you are looking to, buy a refrigerator because you need a new refrigerator and you see the price and the price is acceptable to you, I would just go ahead and buy it. I don't think there's enough, knowledge, enough data there to kind of say, here's the ideal time to kind of go buy that item. If you need it, you should sort of go out and buy it. But I also think that there are deals to be had, and we certainly saw that, this past weekend over, Black Friday. There was a pair of headphones. Macy's was selling a pair of like Sonos Ace headphones, one of our highest rated headphones. They usually retail for like over $300. They were selling it for $100. I saw Apple laptops that were priced anywhere between $500 and $700. So there are still deals to be had, and you should look for those and pounce on them when you get the opportunity.
And really quickly, no, I got excited because we gotta end the segment. But the old Apple iPhones and the Apple older, not old, but maybe instead of the iPhone 17, it's the iPhone 16.
That's right. Yeah, I would recommend that you kind of look at going back a generation. They certainly were, the older smartwatch from Apple was on sale. The iPhone was on sale. The other tip that I would give people is to look at refurbished. Apple, Samsung, LG, Best Buy, Walmart, they all have refurbished programs. That's the kind word for used, what we used to think of as used items. But they will take those items and they will restore them to pristine condition. They often come to you in a brand new box and you get a new 1-year warranty. I got my laptop that way. I was delighted with it and I saved about $150.
Awesome tips from Chris Raymond, Home and Tech Editor for Consumer Reports. Go to consumerreports.org to see that price tracker. Thank you so much, Chris, for doing this. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Frankie. I appreciate it.
Happy holidays.
Same to you, bud.
Thank you so much for coming on. After the break, we're going to explore the impact of tariffs on Connecticut businesses. More Wheelhouse next on Connecticut Public.
Support comes from Community Renewal Team, dedicated to changing lives and creating opportunity. This holiday season, bring hope to those in need by donating at crtct.org. Your generosity uplifts families in our community.
Christine Kewen knew hardly anything about her father's family. That is, until a mysterious letter reached her doorstep.
Asking about my grandfather, his involvement with the Nazi Party, and spying for the Japanese. And I was like, very confused.
That launched Christine on a 30-year journey uncovering her family's Nazi history and their role in the attack on Pearl Harbor. That's on the next On Point.
Listen this morning at 10.
Coming up on the next episode of the Colin McEnroe Show, one thing I think about a lot these days is what is college for? And I have someone to whom I can pose that question. We will be talking to Daniel Lugo, the new president of Trinity College.
Listen this afternoon at 1. Support comes from Yale Repertory Theater.
Support comes from Massaro Community Farm. Get certified organic produce with their 2026 CSA program. On sale now. Sliding scale pricing, 20-week and 10-week flexible options are available. Registration at massarofarm.org/NPR.
This is The Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs have shaken up the global economy, trickling down to local businesses right here in Connecticut. This hour, we're taking a look at how businesses and consumers are coping, especially during the holiday season. I'm joined by Daniela Doncel, Latino Communities reporter for Connecticut Public. Thank you so much for being here, Danny.
Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you here. I appreciate you coming on. Your reporting recently took you on a trip to Parkville Market, one of my favorite places here in Hartford. Popular spot with many vendors. It's typical for the place to be bustling. You spoke with a restaurateur there. Who is he and how did he end up there?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to speak with Enrique Rodriguez, who, as you said, is a restaurateur. He owns Mofongo and Foul Play in Parkville Market. Oh, they're so good. He also opened Burrito Loco and Las Tortas MX, so he brings a lot of Latin cuisine in there. And his story is interesting. He actually got furloughed, unfortunately, during the COVID-19 pandemic. During that time, he went to visit a friend who had a restaurant in Parkville Market. This was in its early stages. There was only a few in there. And he fell in love with the place. And he had to speak with his wife, but they eventually decided to take out their 401k savings to invest in these new businesses. He really wanted to be there. And, his wife wasn't too confident about the idea, but he thinks the bet paid off.
Especially during a pandemic, man.
Tell me about it.
That's a tough time to open up a business. In preparation for our conversation today, I talked to Lauren Coleman. She's the general manager of, actually, I think we're going to actually have a clip here of Enrique Rodriguez. Let's see that. Oh, I apologize. This is going to be related to our next part here that I apologize. We're going to have with Lauren Coleman here, the general manager of Pebbles Toys and Gifts in New Haven. It's a wooden toy shop in East Rock. Coleman says that in her open-ended toy shop, that's what they call it, they're working to save money by clipping coupons and getting creative on shipping costs. Coleman also says that while they aren't buying products predominantly from countries impacted by the Trump tariffs, she was recently notified about some tariff-related price hikes for a shop they buy from in Thailand called Plan Toys.
Their products will go up $1 to $2 per, sometimes less. And right now, we're not planning to pass that on to our customers.
Danielle, it sounds like local businesses are really trying not to pass tariff-related costs into customers. And this is what I was trying to make in terms of the connection. Is that something you heard from Enrique at the Parkville Market in Hartford too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He is doing everything he can to make sure that his customers are not taking care of those tariff-related costs. And of course, that's going to take its toll, right? So when I spoke with him, he said that as of November, he hadn't seen a profit for 6 months. And unfortunately, that's because he saw his food costs. He estimated that it went from 25 to 40%. So, covering those costs have eaten up his profit. But he's willing to take that hit. He says he just does not want to have his customers, cover those.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for folks, and it's also making me crave mofongo over there at Enrique's shop over there. I also spoke with Wayne Pesch. He's the president of the Connecticut Food Association. Pesch says that there may be sticker shock this holiday season, particularly when it comes to the price of beef and chocolate.
I think the larger concern, and this is not a Connecticut trend, but a national trend, is the cost of beef. And so Thanksgiving is a poultry holiday. Christmas is generally a beef holiday. and there are large beef shortages throughout the country. The price of beef is up probably about 25% from a year ago. So there'll be, again, some sticker shock.
Earlier in the show, we spoke with Daniel DeRocher about, he's from Politico, about President Trump rolling back some of the tariffs on items like beef, which seems to maybe a win for businesses like Enrique. What other wins will Enrique and other Connecticut businesses be looking for?
You know, right now, one of the big ones that we're keeping an eye on is the U.S. Supreme Court is currently weighing a decision, and this was something we talked about earlier. You know, they're looking at a case in which small business owners are challenging the president's ability to impose tariffs on imports. And he's using this law called the International Emergency Economics Powers Act. It's from 1977, basically gives him the ability to, use economic powers in a national emergency. But if he's imposing tariffs on this, using this law legally, that's what's in question right now. It's unclear when a decision is going to be made, but when that does happen, it'll definitely change things around tariffs.
And really quickly, is any local lawmakers weighing in to try to help Enrique and company here?
Oh, yeah. So Congressman John Larson actually did visit Parkville Market. He went to speak with restaurateurs like Enrique to hear about their challenges with tariffs. When I spoke with him, he essentially said, not all tariffs are bad in and of itself. His concern is with the way President Trump went about imposing them, which is through executive order. So, he just wants to make sure that there is congressional process when it comes to those. So he did introduce legislation to make sure that the Congress is required to vote before any new tariffs are gone into effect.
Yeah, many times they handle the purse strings and appropriations there in Congress. Daniela Doncel, wonderful reporting here. Thank you for taking us into Parkville Market.
Thank you.
And then coming here on Asylum Avenue and helping us out. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks so much.
Please pay attention to her work, the Latino Communities Reporter for Connecticut Public at ctpublic.org. Folks, before you go, don't miss out on the Wheelhouse Live on December 10th, right here at Connecticut Public Studios in Hartford. We're talking free speech and democracy with local experts. More info and tickets available at ctpublic.org/Frankie. We'll see you on December 10th. Today's show produced by Chloe Wynn, edited by Patrick Scahill. Technical producer is Dylan Reyes. Thank you to the rest of our Connecticut Public team here for the work. Download the Wheelhouse anytime on your favorite podcast app. I'm Frankie Graziano. This is the Wheelhouse. Thank you for listening.